as I said earlier, on instruments and the limits of detection. We may not know all the things that make up the universe we live in or how to detect them. I would also note, however, that the detection device for whatever this something is was a living plant. There was a definite connection to this something and to life. I see many new insights to this ability we have now detected this essential something of life. Now we can come to a better understanding of it. What kind of laws does it follow? Does it require the death of the shrimp? What else does the plant detect? Are there other instruments that can be hooked up to the plant or separate that detect different things? It is my emphasis in telling you about this experiment and the findings that there is because more evidence of what we think of as the insubstantial is now being proven to exist to whatever extent by experimentation. Now that I have established how we are going to get information from the other side, let us pose the question as to what or where is this other side. The first thought that comes to mind is after death, the spirit realm, but these descriptions don't give us much. Another term we may use is a different dimension. This one may be closest to the actual truth, and we will keep it in mind. But because of the scientific concepts of dimensions, I will instead use the word universe, and more often reality instead. With the definitions we used for reality, we can say that it is awareness and perception in one that is not this physical one. It is somewhat of a habit to refer to this other reality as above our own, based mostly on older beliefs. Whereas in the dimensions of space, it is not in any direction. One of the reasons it may be thought of in this way is because of the sensation most psychics have when they contact this area. That is, of an acceleration, higher vibration, and may also have the feeling of moving upwards. Seth has also used the term frequency. Seth Speaks, Session 594. Quote, as physical objects are symbols, existing as realities within certain frequencies, so there are other realities, of course, at different frequencies. But here, objects are not the main symbols. End quote. Here is an account of Sue Watkins as she describes her observations during one of Seth's sessions. Seth Speaks, 594. Quote, as I sat here before the session, Sue writes, I got an impression of Seth that I'd never had before. It was as though Jane, Rob, and I were traveling at a certain familiar speed while we were talking. Although this has nothing to do with motion. When Seth came around just before the session, it seemed that something within Jane began to crank up, to whirl or accelerate faster and faster, until a certain incredibly other speed was reached, a part of Jane's consciousness that is called Seth. End quote. It has also been noted by other psychics, such as Elaine Garrett, that to communicate there was a speeding up on her part and a slowing down on the part from the other entities she was trying to contact. From what information I have gathered, I put together a theory of these other realities' locations as being too fast for our normal physical senses to detect. Going back to how we perceive this reality through the senses and electrochemical actions within the brain, we have some physical limitations. It takes time for the neurons to send and receive impulses. To us, this process is incredibly fast because we are living that limitation, and it is as fast as the physical laws of this universe allow. Computers are a good example here, as they become faster and faster, but there is still a limit to how fast they can go, ultimately because of the properties of the physical matter they are made out of, and the properties of electricity. Now I will add some program to our fast computer, and as many users know, some programs will just not run on a slower computer. In this analogy, it would not be possible to be aware of this other reality because it would leap past us far too fast. Working within this premise, it seems logical that once we are separated from the slower neurological limits, that we can then perceive realities of other speeds. For the entity that is on this metaphysical level, as it projects its consciousness into physical reality, it must go through the brain, and it has to work at the speed the brain works at. We, too, are doing the same thing if we consider the source of our being coming from these other realities, the essence of us, the entity, or higher self, of what we are, does not have this limitation if there is no physical apparatus. Here are some of the things Seth says about it. Nature of Personality, Session 653. Quote, in surface terms, the sense of I that you possess is the result of constantly emergent probable identities, given continuity in time through the physical apparatus of the body, with its built-in intervals of nerve reaction, You only remember the portions of your identity that is physically realized, those portions that are drawn into corporal patterns. This is a result of the focusing and yet limiting behavior of the physical brain. For effective survival behavior in your reality depends upon time reactions. The nerve pattern's activity, therefore, causes the illusion of a present in which your consciousness appears focused and alert. In certain terms, future events exist now, but they are too fast. They jump over the nerve endings too quickly, and physically you cannot perceive or experience them as yet. End quote. This is not all that needs to be said about the where of this other reality. More to the point is that there is not just this physical reality, and then one other non-physical reality, but there are many other realities. In the following statement, Seth is discussing probabilities. I include it here as more information to answer the question of whether metaphysical is. However, in the concepts I am trying to get across about the metaphysical as it forms our reality, it may not be within this area or other realities as described. It is, however, some good information to expand our understanding of more realities and loosen some of the limiting concepts we have. Seth speaks, 567. Quote, "The physical brain alone cannot pick up these connections with any great success. The mind, which is the inner counterpart of the brain, can at times perceive the far greater dimensions of any given event through a burst of sudden intuition, of comprehension that cannot be adequately described on a verbal level. As I have said frequently, time as you think of it does not exist. Yet in your terms, time's true nature could be understood if the basic nature of the atom was ever made known to you. In one way, an atom could be compared to a microsecond. It seems as if an atom exists steadily for a certain amount of time. Instead, it phases in and out, so to speak. It fluctuates in a highly predictable pattern and rhythm. It can be perceived within your system only at certain points in this fluctuation. So it seems to scientists that the atom is steadily present. They are not aware of any gaps of absence as far as the atom is concerned. In these periods of non-physical projection, the off periods of fluctuation, the atom appears in other systems of reality. In that system, they are perceived in what are on points of fluctuation. And in that system, also, then, the atoms seem to appear steady. There are many such points of fluctuation, but your system, of course, is not aware of them, nor of the ultimate actions, universes, and systems that exist within them. Now the same sort of behavior occurs on a deep, basic, secret, and unexplored psychological level. The physically oriented consciousness, responding to one phase of the atom's activity, comes alive and awake to its particular existence. But in between are other fluctuations, in which consciousness is focused upon entirely different systems of reality, each of their coming awakes and responding, and each one having no sense of absence, and memory only of those particular fluctuations to which they respond. These fluctuations are actually simultaneous. It would seem to you as if there would be no gaps between the fluctuations, and the descriptions I have used is the best ones for our purpose. But the probable systems all exist simultaneously, and basically, following this discussion, the atom is in all these other systems at one time. End quote. Seth has expounded on the concepts of probable universes and selves before the 1970s, and at that time the quantum theory of multiple universes was not well established. Even today it is not predominant but has shown itself. It is, however, a good correlation between what Seth has proposed and what we are now creating theories about. As far as the atom is concerned, not much has or can be correlated to the above. But the newer theories do believe in dimensional interface, this being string theory, and due to its complexity I will not go into that within this book. As it is, this is not to be the levels we are going to study within this text. For more information on probabilities and what scientists call parallel universes, I refer to the most recent scientific journals and to the Seth books, especially Unknown Realities. You may have noticed that in both of the views looking for this metaphysical counterpart of our universe, the reference to time, In the above quotation, these multiple universes and pulsations of the atom could only be observed from a viewpoint out of the normal time conditions that we perceive. The reason these pulsations cannot be detected by science is that any instrument we make are made out of the same matter that is pulsing. It is for this reason, to see beyond this physical reality, we have to look for observations that are not within this limitation. And Seth seems to be within a realm of observation that we can use. With all this, we have established where our main views of the other side will be from, Seth's viewpoint. So let us consider what that is. I will give a longer element of the information Seth provides on this and the environment he is in. Seth speaks. 5:13. Quote, "While my environment differs in rather important respects from that of my reader, I can assure you, with ironic understatement, that it is a valid, varied, and vital as physical existence. It is more pleasurable, though my ideas of pleasure have changed some since I was a physical being more rewarding, and offering far greater opportunities for creative achievement. My present existence is the most challenging one that I have known, and I have known many, both physical and non-physical. There is not just one dimension in which non-physical consciousness resides, any more than there is only one country on your planet or planet within your solar system. My work in this environment provides far more challenge than any you know, and it also necessitates the manipulation of creative materials that are nearly beyond your present comprehension. I will say more of this shortly. First off, all of you must understand that no objective reality exists but that which is created by consciousness. Consciousness always creates form, and not the other way around. So my environment is a reality of existence created by myself and others like me, and it represents the manifestation of our development. We do not use permanent structures. There is not a city or a town, for example, in which I dwell. I do not mean to imply that we are off in empty space. For one thing, we do not think of space as you do, and we form whatever particular images we want to surround us. They are created by our mental patterns, as your own physical reality is created in perfect replica of your inner desires and thoughts. You think that objects exist independently of you, not realizing they are instead the manifestations of your own psychological and psychic selves. We realize that we form our own reality, and therefore we do so with considerable joy and creative abandon. In my environment, you would be highly disoriented, for it would seem to you as if it lacked coherency. We are aware of the inner laws that govern all materialization, however. Break. Permanency and stability basically have nothing to do with form, but with the integration of pleasure, purpose, accomplishment, and identity. I travel to many other levels of existence in order to fulfill my duties, which are primarily those of a teacher and educator, and I use whatever aids and techniques serve me best within these systems. Break. All systems of reality are not physically oriented, you see, and some are entirely unacquainted with physical form. Break. In my home environment, I assume whatever shape I please, and it may vary, and does, with the nature of my thoughts. You, however, form your own physical image at an unconscious level in more or less the same manner, but with some important differences. You usually do not realize that your physical body is created by you at each moment as a direct result of your inner conceptions of what you are, or that it changes in important chemical and electromagnetic ways with the ever-moving pace of your own thoughts. I have long ago recognized the dependence of form upon consciousness. We have simply been able to change our form entirely so that they more faithfully follow each nuance of our inner experience. This ability to change form is an inherent characteristic of any consciousness. Only the degree of proficiency and actualization vary. You can see this in your own system in a slowed-down version, when you observe the changing forms taken by living matter through its evolutionary history. Now, we can also take several forms at one time, so to speak. But you can also do this, although you do not generally realize it. Your physical form can lie sleeping and inert upon the bed, while your consciousness travels in a dream form to a place quite distant. Simultaneously, you may create a thought form of yourself, identical in every respect, and this may appear in the room of a friend quite without your conscious awareness. So consciousness is not limited as to the forms it can create at any given time.